Что касается фаворитов, то не нам это определять. Это все-таки выбор американского народа. Ну, я уже говорил, у нас, значит, фаворитом, если можно сказать, был действующий президент, господин Байден. Вот его сняли с гонки, но он рекомендовал всем своим, значит, сторонникам поддержать госпожу Харрис. Ну, вот и мы тоже так сделаем, будем ее поддерживать. Это, во-первых. А во-вторых...
Раззавещали, значит, надо, да?
Вот. А во-вторых, она так выразительно и заразительно смеется, что это говорит о том, что у нее все хорошо.
Call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
She is so extraordinarily vapid. Man, between her and Biden, it's like Biden doesn't know what he's saying and will just read anything. With her, it's as if they put her out there having no knowledge of anything. And she strings together words in the most circular way to say absolutely nothing.
Call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
She is so extraordinarily vapid. Man, between her and Biden, it's like Biden doesn't know what he's saying and will just read anything. With her, it's as if they put her out there having no knowledge of anything. And she strings together words in the most circular way to say absolutely nothing.
That the gentlelady from Missouri, Mrs. Wagner, who is also the vice chair of our Foreign Affairs Committee and the chair of the Capital Markets Subcommittee here on Financial Services. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this very past anniversary of 9/11, the Biden administration announced this reckless and extremely dangerous deal with Iran, a state sponsor of terror. President Biden's decision to release $6 billion in Iranian funds is nothing short of a windfall of cash and economic relief for Tehran to use for its military and to fund terrorist proxies like, as we've spoken, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. This was a shameful payout to a regime that is responsible for countless deaths, including Americans. Less than a month later, Hamas and Iran-funded terrorist group launched the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Let's be clear about Iran's role in the Middle East. It is the world's worst state sponsor of terror, and it is bent on attacking U.S. and Israeli interests with every resource it can muster. This money should never have been released in the first place. And now the U.S. must claw it back to ensure that they cannot be used to further in efforts to further by Iran or Hamas to target Israel. Mr. Noronha, the Biden administration has mentioned a, quote, quiet understanding with Qatar regarding the $6 billion in Iranian funds exchanged in the hostage deal. What does a quiet understanding look like in practice?
It means nothing at all, because a quiet understanding has no legal basis. It does not legally prevent Qatar from distributing those funds to Iran in the future. And more importantly, in my mind, it does not prevent or discourage Iran from taking, say, Qatari or American hostages to say, okay, now you really have to turn that spigot back on. We've made this practice now of saying you can get cash for hostages. And now that that practice has been exemplified to the Iranian regime, they will use and abuse that as long as this is a possibility.
Thank you. And Mr. Goldberg, the Biden administration said that the $6 billion in accounts in Qatar could only be used for humanitarian purposes. Can you explain why that is impossible to ensure, given the fact that we all know that money is fungible?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. They also said this about the $10 billion going to Oman, the same language used by Mr. Miller at the State Department. So that's why we should take a close look at what's been spent there, too. Obviously, money is fungible. So even if they say this is all for non-sanctions goods, by the way, which is wider than what we traditionally think of as humanitarian, because there's all kinds of debts that can be paid off in that respect as budget support, even if you accept that, we also know and have documented, Mr. Noronha went through yesterday, so many times in history when Iran has filed paperwork that's fraudulent, front companies, false transactions that have gone to money laundering, that have gone to the IRGC, gone to Assad in Syria, Hulk Bank in Turkey. Remember that massive scandal still being prosecuted today? That was all based on humanitarian transactions, billions of dollars of a scheme that Iran had cooked up, and nobody caught it.
Let me press on. Mr. Noronha, approximately how much money does Iran provide to Hamas each year? And would the terrorist attacks that Hamas perpetrated on October 7th have been possible without that Iranian support, including financial support?
They historically provided $100 million. During maximum pressure, they had to institute an austerity plan. They had to lay off a bunch of fighters. They were really struggling on budgets. That since 2021, that funding has increased to as much as $350 million. And my view is their strategic surprise would not have been possible.
So the sanctions were working when we had forced them into their austerity plan, so they could not, in fact, fund these terrorist proxies to the extent that they are currently. One other question, because it just rubs me wrong, Mr. Goldberg. Why was the foreign minister of Iran, why does he have a visa to be in New York City right now? I was reading about it earlier today. It's absolutely unbelievable to me that this man who was working on plotting with Hamas an attack against Israel has been given a visa and is currently, this foreign minister is in New York City, sir.
Completely shameful, ma'am. There are Americans held hostage. Iran is complicit. There are Americans dead. This man should not be in the country.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.